I'm Zendor, and yes, you have been expecting me. I'll be your guide, playing the devil's advocate as we peer into the depths of what keeps us afraid, angry, ignorant, and immobile. Dreams mold future realities, and our dream for Who is to inspire our viewers to become actively involved in the critical issues that affect all of us. Who will be exploring perplexing subject areas regarding the environment, human services, arts and culture, health, politics, metaphysics, education, and whatever else is necessary to inform you. You draw your own conclusions. So many times, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And in today's world with so much misinformation keeping us apart, it really does matter how we interact with one another. That's what is. And I am your door. You won't want to miss any of Who. Because Who cares about true community service? We'll be opening up the airways to honest debate, and you will gain from the experience. Who cares? Who cares? Join us. You'll be glad you did. Now, here's how you can get involved.
Rolling.
Okay. Hi, this is Zen, and we're on location in Sedona at the UFO and ET conference, and I'm standing here with Hal Wilcox, who for 14 years was an educator and a school teacher, left that industry, went into the motion picture business doing special effects, and experienced his first contactee experience in 1961, and was followed up in 1963 by an actual physical contact. Now, Hal, what was the essence of the message that they gave you at that time? Why did they contact you? And how did that experience evolve?
I was contacted because I was constantly asking questions from 1952 as to what's really going on this planet. I was in a foxhole in Korea when I started asking questions, and I didn't realize I was being guided or observed while I kept on asking questions. So as I asked questions, I got answers. It simply follows that way.
Now, did these answers come telepathically, in the physical realm, or what?
Well, it started when I approached authorities and found out they really didn't know what they're talking about. I then started doing hypnotic regressions for 2 years. Then I learned how to go into a trance contact myself and contact the ascended teachers. And for 2 years they came through me, my physical body. And then I channeled for 6 years. And at the end of the 6 years, we were told that this had been rebroadcasted through a physical device over the building, and we should go outside and physically see the device hovering over the building, which was a UFO.
And what did it look like?
It looked like a flying saucer, a Bill-type craft that's 33 feet some across, and what George Adamski successfully photographed for many, many years. This government says this is swamp gas, of course.
Right. Well, what was the essence of the message that they gave you?
My assignment was governance, to see to America completing her third test of destiny as started in 1774 in the home of Benjamin Franklin. Our first test was religious freedom, our second was equal opportunity or rights, and our third test has to do with American heritage, use it or lose it. So I've had to advance through 7 projects and the last 40 years to come to this point.
Could you synopsize those projects?
Yes, Project 1 was to find the others who had been contacted and see what the result was. In every case, they formed another religion, a world religion. Project 2 was to explain to the scientific community what would happen if we allowed our endolic immune system to continue collapsing or if we enhanced it. The result is that we continue to let it collapse and we have AIDS, AIDS today, instead of enhancing it and being stronger as a race. Project 3 was to set up an all-world radio network, shortwave, so we would have honest, good communication around the world of people speaking the truth. Project 4 had to do with learning how to generate life force, store it, and use it something like you would understand electricity to power up and give what happened in Project 5, artificial intelligence in a computer, which I then did Project 5. Project 6, which has caused me to leave the educational community and go into the motion picture industry, was to learn to put stories in pictorial form. So I put this entire story together and was shown on television coast to coast in 1978 the country of Japan because it was not receptive at all in the country of America.
And the name of that production was?
Well, it was NTV Productions, and they have now shown the truthful UFO story for the last 10, 15 years in the country of Japan. It's just now, as you're doing now, beginning to leak out to America.
People have the right to know.
Yeah, but we have not received information.
Right.
Various media have been clamped down on and not allowed to put out certain stories.
And why do you think that is?
Control.
Doesn't the media give us a clear picture?
Control by misinformation or lack of information. And what's happening is, as you are doing this, you are informing people.
Now, what about Project 7?
Project 7 has to do with American heritage and America's third test of destiny, which in both cases has to do with causing people to find out who they are, where they came from, and what they came here to do, and then wake up to that reality, and then advance and be part of the already graduated 59 other graduate colony planets in this galaxy. We all came here together, and this is the last planet to graduate, and we have not graduated.
Now, is that something akin to balancing inner and outer reality, so to speak? What goes on inside of us, internally, our thoughts, our experience, and the exterior world?
Well, it had to do with social more than anything else, to evolve a system of government whereby we would abide by spiritual law, and yet this government would be by and for the people. It's exactly what the United States started out to be, but unfortunately today we're polluting it, selling it, burning it, spitting on it, flushing it down the toilet.
And we only have a 38% voter turnout for the last presidential election. What does that tell you?
Yeah, well, that's the whole point, that if we were to take advantage of being an American, in America, go to our public libraries, well, some of them still are open, and use these things to learn, such as what you're doing, you're helping educate people in your own way, people would act differently. But unfortunately, the various medias are trying to keep information from the people, and the people themselves now, who are pretty much brainwashed, don't want to hear anything new, because it would turn their religious thing upside down. That's it, rock the boat. And that's one thing we don't want to do, is rock the boat with perfect or correct information.
And whether it be governmental culture, organizational culture, corporate culture.
Any subject. So I'm one of these rare birds that was contacted physically, even as I lay my hand on your shoulder, physically contacted, and given various assignments, which has caused me to travel around the world to various countries to bring about conditions that have changed. Not to be an evangelist or start another religion. That was my first project, to make sure I did not start any more religions, but to try to share the truth and also to get certain things accomplished, as which I've already enumerated to you. So right now it's mainly to help people realize that once before we got so involved with high-tech entertainment that we forgot who we were and what we came here to do.
Maybe we need to form edutainment rather than entertainment.
Well, that sounds cute, but I think that's what the problem is, that people are more involved with sitting in front of the boob tube.
And movies and things like that.
Etc. I'm not going to, because I work with emotional picture industry, so I'm not going to slap or bite the hand that feeds me.
Right.
But I think these tools can be used in a more effective manner, as you are doing right this moment.
Bottom line, what's going to happen if we pay attention?
Two things. We're going to come out of this thing the way it was intended by God and man on planet Earth, a successful nation, the United States of America. And the other thing, we're going to destroy ourselves. We're going to self-destruct. No one's going to do it to us. Your friends and my neighbors are going to help us self-destruct.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
Those are the other choice is that it'll be postponed another year, perhaps.
Any personal advice you can give to our viewers that may be having some experiences such as you've described?
Yeah, I would suggest that people kind of wake up, not in the religious sense, but just pay attention to what's really going on. Bill Cooper came forward and tried the scare tactics, and I thought it would get everybody woke up, but it would scare the heck out of everybody, and it didn't really do the job.
Drove them further in the sand.
Correct. Yes, sir. So I think that the word hope is awfully weak. So that's what I was saying inside here. I think that people have to realize there is a plan. It was laid out 3,992 years ago, and it's very much in force now and on course. But we have to continue with that plan until it's completed. And you're doing your bit in helping.
Thanks, Hal, and so are you. Thanks for your time.
Nice talking to you.
And thank you. You just heard from Hal Wilcox here in Sedona, Arizona, at the UFO and ET convention here. Fact or fiction? Well, that's up to you to decide. Maybe you're having similar experiences, maybe not. Fact is, this is happening here. With who? I'm here with Helga Morrow, who is the founder and co-producer of the first annual Sedona UFO ET conference. And Helga, what got you started in this? What kind of experience prompted you to do this kind of thing?
Well, first of all, my background is diversified. I'm an artist and I'm a businesswoman. And when I was a small child, I had some interesting experiences. I'm the daughter of a German scientist. So everything that we talked about today has been told to me by my father years ago, and this was in the 40s during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
I was never allowed to speak about it, and I'm coming out in public now, and I feel it's about time. And
what is it that you're speaking about?
We're speaking about UFOs, unidentified flying objects, and as Posty Armstrong would say, it's IFOs, identified flying objects. They definitely are here. And they've been around a long time.
What have you noticed in putting something together like this? What kind of people do you draw?
Well, the crowd that we have today and my viewpoints are a very positive viewpoint. It's unlike the TV that we are used to seeing from day to day on some of the programs, which I think are sensationalized. They're negative. A lot of people are frightened. They've seen entities that have long ears or gray skin, things like that. Some people think it's the work of the devil. Some people have other opinions.
So you're looking for a better perspective, to present a better perspective of what's happening.
Yes, yes, yes.
What's the essence of the message that you're sharing with the general public here?
What we're talking about is almost on biblical terms. If you go back to the time of Genesis when the angels came down and mated with the humans that were Adam's daughters, they were considered angels. And angel simply means messenger. And if you look it up in the dictionary, it is messenger. And the messengers that have come to me and to many of us are beautiful beings. They're positive. They certainly believe in our Creator. They give a wonderful message of hope to the world. They are not warlike, as many people would say. And the ones that I have seen and that the ones that my father has talked about are the ones that have given us not only a biblical message, but they have taken us to a point where we feel that we shouldn't have wars. We shouldn't do things to each other to hurt each other. In other words,
you're saying that the ETs basically are tied into the scriptures?
Yes, they are, definitely. Look at Ezekiel's wheel, and even the burning bush. We have no evidence of what that was.
A lot of interesting kind of supernatural occurrences that we have yet to be able to explain en masse.
En masse, but
what you've got here are people that have at least assembled information that defines things in a little more concrete way.
Yes, it's very concrete. Everyone that we have here, every speaker that we have here, has an extensive, knowledgeable background. A lot of us are ministers like myself, and we certainly don't want to say anything against the Bible or or God or what we are. If we're in God's image, what is God's image?
Right, that's a good question. What is God's image? Anyway, why do you think people are resistant to accepting things that happen off planet? Are we too tied into what's happening here around us to care?
People are resistant because we in America, in the United States, have been taught, not only in schools, to ridicule flying saucers or anything that's supernatural. People have been taught in everything from churches to organizations that this is wrong. And they
Well, hey, if I can't see it, I can't touch it,
right.
I can't
If you
feel
can't
it.
feel it, you can't touch it, and you can't...
It doesn't exist.
Yes. But some of the things that I have seen and some of the things that we're talking about here have been seen, have been recorded, and are documented. And even to the point of there have been actual ships that have crashed. One, for instance, in 1947 in Roswell. They have pieces of that ship. You can't tear it up. You can't shoot it with bullets, and it's as thin as tinfoil. So, I mean, that's documented in the hand. It is not from this world.
And we'll be talking to others who have
Yeah.
been privy to that information
Yes.
and have seen those types of things in just a little bit. Helga, thank you very much, and much success to the continuation of this event.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you.
I'm here now with Virgil Posty Armstrong, and we're here also at the Sedona conference. Posty?
Really
You've
have
had-
you call me Virgil, please.
Okay, well I knew
Yeah.
you as Posty several
Yeah.
years ago. And, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to change it.
All right. Well, Virgil, you're in a little different realm than most. You've been involved with military intelligence over the years. What got you first involved with the UFO phenomena?
Well, my first exposure to it was in 1948 with the second capture of a UFO in the United States at White Sands Proving Grounds, New Mexico.
And this was a
And,
capture as opposed to a crash.
Well, actually what it was a soft landing, of course, and then subsequently it was a capture. I would say it was a presentation. We had had several disastrous crashes the year before in the Roswell, New Mexico area, and they had impacted and scattered bodies and pieces of the craft all over the landscape. We did get one body out of that, but we didn't have much to go on, and I feel that crash or presentation, you call it what you will, in White Sands, New Mexico, was to right the error that they made in the first 3 or 4 introductions. And so that craft came down silently, had 5 occupants. Later turned out they were all dead. It was a soft landing, and of course it was in the middle of the most sensitive proving grounds in the world then, and probably even now. And so I think it was a way of saying to us, you know, there was a greater intelligence watching all that we were doing, particularly in terms of our atomic and nuclear advancement and weaponry. And so that was my first introduction to it. And of course from then on it became a subject of interest. And but I really did nothing seriously about it. That was 48, and then I retired from the military in 1962. And some years later is when I took it up as a full-time pursuit to research it and to delve into it, and particularly from a spiritual aspect, to see what more I could find out about it.
What did you find out about it? What's the essence of what you found?
Well, the essence, after all these years of research, is that they are us and we are them. And, you know, and there's really no great mystery. As I said the other night, it's no longer UFO, it's IFO. It's an identified flying object. There are a few unanswered questions, you know, although we have some pretty good surmising conclusions. For instance, we know today that many of the craft are those owned by the United States or now Russia or possibly South Africa.
Now, being involved with military intelligence, why has this involvement occurred without the public's knowledge?
Well, it started out in 1948. I asked the same question. At that time, of course, it was top secret. It should have been. I had to agree with it. But I asked my commanding officer at that time...
And look what War of the Worlds did.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's exactly what he said. I said, look, why isn't this being given to the public? I think they have a right to know. Well, first of all, I was told as a military officer to mind my own business by my superior, and I was not happy about that, and he saw I wasn't. He says, well, he says, maybe you deserve an explanation. He said, the reason is we don't want another Orson Welles scare, you know, invasion from Mars, that's that same thing. Well, it had some validity in those days, and I accepted it with tongue-in-cheek, although I didn't agree with it, you know. Being a military officer, though, I had to, of course, conform.
Not rock the boat.
Yeah, right. And so I didn't. But that later became a catch-22 right up to this present-day age, you know.
You've been rocking the boat here
Oh,
lately.
you bet I have. Well, I started not so much now as I did, say, in 1980 on. It's like I said the other night, these people wouldn't be here today disclosing what they are now if I had not done it in 1980 and challenged the government and said, look, you characters, I said, you damn well have lied to us about all of this. We do have our own UFOs. We are on the moon. We are on Mars. And you're denying this to the people. Why? And as I said also, as a result of that, I had 3 attempts on my life. Now, I couldn't say that was the government. Maybe it was a Christian group. I don't know. But there was somebody who didn't like what I had to say, and they made it well known.
You definitely know you'd push the button somewhere.
That's right. I pushed the buttons. I had Wendell Stevens with me at that time, and Jim Delatosa. And anyhow, that was the beginning of the breaking down of the barriers of secrecy. And I continued to do it, and I continued to walk through it and around it and from it, and survived. That encouraged others to do it, and we see what the state of the art is today. But I'm the guy who pushed the door open. So.
Well, I don't know whether to thank you yet or not.
Yeah, well, that's a
and that's
good
up
point.
to you.
Yeah, that's right. It's up to them. But I feel that, you know, I feel that we're going to have major disclosures here in the very near future, because I talked a little while ago about the mass exposure, of course, in Belgium. You know, 60-some craft hovering over the city of Brussels, and everybody from the man on the street to the men in Parliament saw it, and all admitted they saw it, policemen, military alike.
Wasn't there a flyover at the White House
in the
yes,
50s? In the 1950s, but it was quickly hushed. It appeared in the newspapers, the Washington Post one day, and then the next day it was nothing. That was eminent to a landing, and of course our getting in bed with the Greys. Later Truman went out, and of course with Forrestal and others, actually had a meeting with those people and made a pact or an agreement that we would work with them, and we would allow them to use the American people as biological research entities, and for a transfer or trade, if you will, of their expertise and knowledge about space and their technology.
And for lack of a better, we have allowed that to take place, have we not?
That's right, we have. And now, of course, the consciousness is raised. People have a right to demand to know more. Now, if the government does not listen to the people, I can assure you that by the spring of next year, the ETs are going to make their presence known. They've already done it in Belgium. They wiped out the central computer. And it's just a matter of time before, and I say the latest spring next year, that they will do the same thing here in the United States. There will be mass flyovers, and the government will have to say, yes, buddy, they're here. And in their defense, the government's defense, I would have to say that they're attempting to do that. First of all, they attempted to do it through the movies, Close Encounters of a Third Kind, E.T., The Day the Earth Stood Still, and all these. These are paid advertisements, so to speak, to you and I to let us know that these things do exist and they are here.
Soften the blow.
To soften the blow, exactly. And now on TV, every time you turn on the TV, you got a program on crop circles or UFOs or something like that. Major stations are now carrying it more and more every day. So I think this is also a step in the right direction. But there has to be a creditable explanation and release by the government in the very near future in order to satisfy the people.
Clear all this mess up once and for all.
Exactly. It has to be done.
Virgil, thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. God bless you, and good journey. Huh? Take care. Bye-bye.
I'm here with Rick Johnston, who's bringing an additional particular aspect to this UFO conference here. And Rick, first of all, what do you do professionally?
I'm a senior programmer analyst in Detroit, Michigan.
So you're involved with the high-tech industry,
yeah.
Real world stuff.
Real world stuff.
Okay. Now, what's your particular skew involved with the UFO phenomenon?
Well, I recently, in the past few years, I had a close encounter of the first kind of sighting. Soon after that, I started to meet contactees and abductees, other researchers. A lot of information started being put in front of me. A very, very close friend of mine, I discovered, who at first just had what was thought of as a sighting. It turned out that she was in fact abducted. And in working with her, that spurred on my research. Finally, I got more and more into the metaphysical aspect of the whole thing. In turning negative abduction cases, like in her case, around to a self-empowerment and very, very positive side.
Novel idea.
Yeah. Which is, and I think metaphysically speaking, this is, what we have to keep in mind is that no one is truly a victim, that we create our own reality. If we are operating on a frequency of fear, on a frequency of victimization and powerlessness, and what we are doing is calling for a demonstration of that, which the aliens are more than happy to accommodate, some of them.
Sure.
And, but there are laws. They have a technologically advanced civilization. What's to stop them from just taking over? Because they do have the technology to do that, but they haven't. Well, that implies that...
Could we say that there is a prime directive involved?
We could say that there are certain laws that they have to abide by. And one of them is the law that says that a sentient being can determine what they want to experience and when they want to experience it.
For our viewers, describe sentient being.
Sentient being, how about if I just say a divine manifestation of God's life? Life
in human form.
In human form.
Like you or I.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's a lot of power implied in that definition that
Sure.
we just have to become aware of.
Power that most of us have not accepted within ourselves at this point. You're talking about self-empowerment.
Right.
How are you accomplishing that within these individuals?
One individual had a profound internalized feeling that she was going to be abducted again. She started seeing visions. She saw one in my apartment at one point. It was a 6-foot-tall giant with big eyes and that sort of thing.
This tall is not that. I mean, you're 6 foot.
Yeah, but he was about 6 foot wide at the same time. It was a manifestation of her fear. Okay, and this is what she was calling for. In turning her around in that, gradually that feeling left her, and she became more and more self-empowered. Recently, she's been having contacts with a different type of a positive nature. That's been very, very reassuring for her, and as she changed her vibration, the events in her life started changing.
So this is the reification of her change in attitude.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, in hearing what you were talking about earlier, you were also involved with studying what some call the Illuminati.
Right.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well,
what are they?
The Illuminati is a secret society that is the secret society within all secret societies. It is a hierarchy. It can be looked upon. Two analogies I like to make is an onion, and with many different layers, with different names, many different organizations covering the core. That small little clique, who are the proverbial they that you always hear of. They're doing this, they're doing that. Who in the hell are they? The recent film JFK, it doesn't so much tell you who killed him, but who didn't kill them. Still, the question of they is still there.
Right.
It has another way of looking at it is a pyramid, similar to the pyramid on the dollar bill. As a matter of fact, the pyramid on the dollar bill does symbolize the Illuminati. Four-sided.
Was it
with a
intended
base
to
of
do that
secrecy.
to begin with?
Oh yeah. 1776, which is at the bottom of the pyramid on the dollar bill, was the year the Illuminati started. And it has its origins in extraterrestrials. It is extraterrestrial
something that we need
inspired.
to fear?
It isn't if you are aware of your own self-empowerment.
A conditional if.
But if you aren't, then yeah, you should be afraid of your own shadow in that case, because even that will trip you up.
Right.
But the laws are the same with them as they are with everything. That's the big trick of life that only now humanity is discovering.
Why now? Why not 50 years ago?
Well, actually, about 60 years ago, there was a man who came into the black community in Detroit, a very, very mysterious man who started teaching about self-empowerment. His name was Farad. He started a whole new paradigm, a whole new way of thinking.
Was he a contactee?
He was a very mysterious man. He also spoke of wheels in the sky, giant wheels. He made references, analogy to the vision of Ezekiel.
Okay.
And he also mentioned that there were smaller little baby wheels upon that. He called them mother planes. This was prior to, of course, the coining of the phrase flying saucer. The only thing we knew that flew was a plane, so this is a flying circular plane. And this whole thing about New Age is really a misnomer, though, because the teachings that are at the basis of metaphysics, that is, you create your own reality, and that thought shapes matter, goes back to antiquity. And it was something that we have forgotten, and a lot of it is based on your own conscious and subconscious beliefs and motivations and what you think you can do.
Might we say that all the information that's present today, organized religion, churches, belief systems, whatever that be, was designed to disempower people in order to keep them in line?
Well, it's kind of like the Tower of Babel. Let us go down and confound their speech, to divide them, to divide larger and larger groups of humanity.
How are we coming together, in your eyes?
We're coming together by getting past a lot of the traditional concepts of religion. For example, there is a Islamic minister in New York who's got the rest of the Islamic community in the Middle East very, very upset with him because he says that Prophet Muhammad was in contact with extraterrestrials. It's rather radical. Religiously speaking, if you really read the scriptures, you're hard-pressed to find anywhere where Abraham or Moses said he was a Jew. You're hard-pressed to find anywhere where Jesus or any of his apostles said that they were Christians. All these little terms and names that we've come up with, when you really get into it and really read the books and the scriptures, you find that they were all basically teaching the same thing, from Abraham, Buddha, to Muhammad. And that is just doing the right thing, as they say, God's will, doing the will of God. What is the will of God? It's that little spark of God within us that tells us when the right thing is to do.
And we can sense that.
And we can sense that. There was a minister who was troubled, and he went to his elder, and he says, "Well, I've got this little girl who's 13 years old, and she's pregnant, so we're going to have to give her some time out of the community." And he says, "But she says that she didn't know it was wrong." And the older minister said, "Don't you let her put that over on you. Ask her where she did this act. And if she had to find if she did it out in the open, then she didn't know. If she had to find a dark place where nobody was looking, then she knew exactly what she was doing." That's an example of that intuition that's inside of us. One of the things we have to do is move out of the logical mind. It will deceive you. It will tell you you didn't see what you saw. It wants to maintain control. It wants control, and it wants security. Okay? We have to move out of that as the ultimate authority and start relying more on our intuitions, our feelings, and that sort of thing. That's where the true knowledge of the future is going to come.
Rick, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Again, thank you. You make your own decision. Okay, I'm here with William Hamilton, and he's got a very different perspective. He deals with the hardcore, the real world, the physical evidence and activities involving the UFO phenomena. Bill, first of all, let's clarify, what is your background?
Well,
professionally,
I'm a computer programmer, computer consultant, and I work in the world of mainframe computers, you know, IBM computers, commercial applications.
Very hardcore, high tech.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what got you involved with the UFO phenomenon to begin with?
When I was very young, I was interested in space travel, rocketry, life on other worlds, and my mother started reading reports out of the newspapers when I was a very young child about pilots encountering flying saucers, and I got very interested in this.
Now, you've taken quite a different approach. Most people are dealing with the spiritual, the metaphysical aspects of this. You're dealing with the concrete, physical, material world. What have you found?
Well, first of all, I have found that what we're dealing with here is a real physical phenomena. We're talking about structured craft, manufactured craft that have been seen both in the air and on the ground. And the reason why I am so interested in this is because of the larger questions, maybe philosophical questions involved as far as mankind as an intelligent species. Is he alone in the universe, or does he have company? You know, we see so many stars out there, and we wonder if there are other worlds like our world,
right?
Whether there are civilizations, whether they have developed space travel as we intend to do, and whether they're coming here, and what these implications are.
With the physical evidence that you're experiencing or have found, and you're talking about the structured craft and things like that.
Right.
There's been made mention that there are both extraterrestrial and governmental craft. Is this so?
Well, we can conjecture about this, okay? We believe that a lot of UFOs, the ones we're really interested in, is spacecraft, have an extraterrestrial origin, all right? And as far as the physical evidence of this, we feel that most of the physical evidence is in the hands of the United States military within very compartmentalized, highly secure installations.
Are they actually building craft?
I believe that the aerospace industries have gotten involved in this, that from their studies of the actual physical craft themselves, that we have attempted to duplicate the technology, and that we have evolved over time, and it's very possible that we have alien replicated vehicles.
Okay. Now, what else on a physical level, the types of things that you have researched and found out?
Well, I mean, most of what we have is not the actual physical hard evidence. Okay. This is what we're deficient in. Almost any UFO researcher would love to get his hands on the actual physical evidence.
Right.
What
like the piece of the craft that Billy Meyer was presented with.
Absolutely. We do have a little physical evidence, you know, like contactees are given some physical evidence.
Right.
But what in the main we have is eyewitness testimony. Some of this eyewitness testimony is corroborated and backed up by photographic evidence or physical traces made on the ground. All right, but we are dealing in the realm of human testimony here, and what we find is a high correlation in testimony, a high consistency in these reports.
That's the thing that I find interesting, is that one person over here will experience something, and then another person over here will experience something very similar, neither one of them knowing of the other.
That's
and
right.
All this information, not just from those two, but from a number of people that have had similar experiences. This is beginning to come out in the open. Now, is this a psychosis, a mass hypnosis? What's happening in your opinion?
Well, I don't believe this has anything to do with a psychosis. And as far as mass hypnosis is concerned, I don't think that's operative here at all. We're talking about, when you get into the details of the testimony, a situation in which somebody who is a very ordinary person can have something very extraordinary happen to him. And we always gain the impression that what he is witnessing, what he's experiencing, is some kind of physical event. All right, it just has an extraordinary nature.
Right. How about some advice for people who are having those kinds of things that can find no one to talk to that'll believe them?
Well, I think that they need to seek out various UFO groups and organizations. And many of these are listed in publications and magazines. and a lot of them have meetings, and they can meet like-minded people, and pretty soon they should share their experience. They should talk about it. We need more openness.
Like
we
Contactees Anonymous or something like that.
Whatever, or abductees,
right?
Whatever.
Is there anything that you feel has been personally shared with you throughout what you've found that you would like to share with others that can make an impact?
Well, I mean, I have found a lot of things that can make an impact, but I think that
constructively.
what I'm summing up, okay, is that we have to undergo a transformation in our thinking and our consciousness, and learn to think on a universal scale. That there are other intelligent life forms in the universe, that they are making contact with humanity, and that the implications of this could be tremendous for our world, the way we are living in our world now.
You talk about intelligent life forms. I have a question of whether most of humanity is an intelligent life form.
Right. The question has always been, is there intelligent life on Earth? Right.
Okay. Bill, thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
And thank you. And now I'm with Jim Dilettoso, who brings yet another perspective, and that is electronics and computer imaging and his analysis of different photographs and materials and things like that involved with the UFO phenomena. Jim, what got you involved originally? How were you approached?
In 1977, I was working at Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, and I was on the Iridium team on the Shroud of Turin research project. And I put together a team of 4 people to analyze the Iridium test that had come back from Rome after the test had been done. And I was asked by Wendell Stevens and Jim Lorenzen, who are UFO investigators, to put together a team and a procedure to test UFO pictures. And then that led to metal samples and landing tracks and other sites, which we've done privately, secretly, some of it, over the last 15 years.
What kinds of things have you found?
Well, I'm a skeptic, you might say. I'm a cross between a skeptic and an optimist. So we enter into it not trying to disprove or prove it, but merely to identify what the material is that we're looking at. So I find many things, ranging from photographs, of course, which are very interesting and very useful for determining that there is a genuine phenomena that is going on. I find an increase, of course, in the media these days, in the last 5 or 6 years, about what the phenomena is really about.
Now, the media seems to be giving it, maybe not the best treatment. Is that your perspective, or do they seem to be really wanting to put out what's really happening?
The media is covering one side, and that is to do with the sensationalism of abductions, people that are taken on board a craft against their will. There's the other side, which are the contact cases, but it's
like Billy Meier.
Like Billy Meier, and other people that willingly have contact with extraterrestrials, if that is indeed what they're seeing. There's many questions.
Do you have some questions of that? Are there any other interpretations?
Well, not in that one case. I don't have any questions, but there may be an effect that's happening from the population due to unclean food. People don't eat fresh food anymore. We're in a 3rd generation now of processed food, and that's never really happened before.
Even the fresh food has less than 10% of its nutritional value than it did in the 40s.
Correct, and important minerals and vitamins that are required for stability of perception and brainwave thinking. NutraSweet and Prozac are both made by the same company. One causes manic depression, one prevents manic depression. That lab is indeed connected with Los Alamos, directly by contract, in Sandia since the 50s, Cyril Laboratories, where a lot of UFO investigation work has been done. So the intrigue deepens as the psychology of balanced management of the planet gets more complex.
You mentioned balanced management of the planet.
Yes.
Now, is that really what the focus of the quote-unquote New Age is all about?
Well, the UFO phenomena has kind of been lumped into the New Age.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. Maybe, just in my perspective, maybe the New Age movement is more about individual understanding of their own nature. If you had to say to someone, are you in the New Age movement? Well, I don't know if everyone might know what that means. But are you interested in personal growth and development? Yeah, that's what a lot of people want to do. And hopefully they're getting better at that in themselves every day and every month.
And certainly with the contactee experiences, that's really propelling those people into the self-awareness and the growth. What kinds of things have you noticed in recent times with the regularity, the consistency, the amount of information that's coming forth, and the types of people involved with it?
Well, we have two sources of information that actually of where I get information, and just because of the nature of how I first got involved, it was military personnel. There is an awakening, a further awakening that is happening in the government. And as people might hope that there would be quality people that are working in the government, there are indeed quality people that work at the post office, that work at the Navy, that work at NASA, that work at the Coast Guard, and other agencies where they have more direct contact with the information that becomes available concerning UFO sightings. And those people are indeed from the 60s and 70s, and they're now captains and majors and colonels and bright...
So the flower children have grown up, eh?
The flower children have budded. The garden has grown, yes. And the information that comes out of government sources is not always just about contacts and abductions and sightings. It's about what it means. It's about...
And that is?
It's about what it means that it's supposed to mean. There aren't clear answers about it.
What do you find that seems to be what it means? I'm sure that encompasses several parameters.
The UFO phenomena is a mystery because the extraterrestrials want it to be a mystery. Not because the government or religions or investigators or contactees want it to be a mystery. There's some relationship between the different groups of extraterrestrials and their relationships with each other that has kept it a mystery from us. Apparently, the cycles of growth and technology advancements and spiritual responsibility that's going on now is not related to the extraterrestrials. They're not running and guiding that. We're doing that. Earth people are strong, capable, advanced people that get insight, perhaps from extraterrestrials, in trying to deal with this mystery. But, look, we live on an insane planet rushing headlong to destruction. And only a change in mass mind is going to affect that rush towards destruction.
Like a critical mass consciousness.
Yes, and whether the extraterrestrials are going to come forward and do anything about it is difficult to say. I don't think they are.
Well, like Massey says, there needs to be a significant emotional event. How do you think that would happen?
Some accident created by man, pollution, contamination, mismanagement of power and technology. I don't know what it's going to be, but it will be something that will make people all of a sudden wake up and go, wait a minute, this is up to us. This is up to me to solve this problem. I can read about extraterrestrials, I can read about contactees, I can read about angels, but it's up to me and my relationship with my friends and my parents and my family as to what my purpose on this planet is about. And extraterrestrials are very interesting, and I'm sure that they're visiting here, but it's up to us.
Jim, thanks for your time.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
I'm here now with Randolph Winters, who has been part of the UFO phenomena happening here in Sedona this weekend. He's got yet an additional perspective, and that's with his work with the Billy Myers case, which is one of the most well-documented UFO contactee cases in history, so to speak. Randolph, what got you involved with that to begin with? What kind of background did you have? that brought you in?
Certainly wasn't anything to do with UFOs. I'm a computer software developer, and at the time I heard about Billy Meier, I believe that was about 1979, and some of his pictures started coming into America. I saw some of the pictures, and I don't know, it just kind of opened up an immense curiosity with me. I just kind of wanted to know more. One thing led to another, and for years I wrote letters and tried to contact them to find out more about the information, what's really going on, because I was very intrigued with the idea that if this was real, if there's a man in Switzerland actually having contacts with humans from another world, then I've got a question or two, you know, like a lot of people do. So I wound up, I think my 85, I think, was my first trip over to see Billy, and I went over and to meet him and stayed there for a while. Didn't get to meet him the first trip. I was kind of disappointed, but it turned out I got to know everybody else there, and we became friends. And as soon as I got back home, he called me up and invited me to come back. So I waited till the following...
Kind of went through the sieve and that one, huh?
I think so. I think I passed the entrance exam, and they decided it was okay for me to meet Billy. And so the following summer, I went back and stayed at the house there for the summer, and got to know him real well. Matter of fact, I just hung out with him all day, every day. And that was a real joy for me, not only just to meet him, but to share a lot in his experiences. And then he opened up to me all the material, his books and his notes and so forth. So, gee, just a lot of fascinating information and answers to questions over there.
Now, being involved in the computer world, I find that most people in the computer world are very well grounded. They know what questions to ask, and you cannot fool them.
That's right. I take pride. I'm a very logical person, and if it doesn't make sense, you're not winning my vote. You know.
I find it a strange coincidence, if you will, that several of the people that I've talked to today are computer programmers, software developers, and so on and so forth.
I noticed that, yeah. Several speakers here are software people. It's interesting, isn't it?
It's a new perspective. I think it...
And music. You know, we have a lot of musicians here, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, from that perspective, what did you find out with Billy?
Well, matter of fact, I left him a computer. I was showing him one time. I took a laptop over there on one trip, and I was trying to get them into using the laptop, and I was going to hook up a modem so I could move information back and forth, but that didn't work out. They don't take kindly to new technology, odd enough, and the several people...
That's strange, with all the UFO contacts, and he still has a hard time with new technology.
Billy doesn't have so much trouble with it. He didn't want to use the computer. He doesn't type or anything. And but the women in the house, he lives with 15 other people there at that place in Schmid-Rudy where he lives at his farm. And most of them regard the computer, for some reason, as like... I don't know, bad technology or something, and they have kind of an attitude thing against it. And I tried very hard just to even show the kids another thing, but I was asked to put it away. And but I used it a lot myself over there. But I thought it was kind of strange, too, that they're kind of anti-technology.
Well, it's not dissimilar to the experience in the corporate world when the computer was first introduced. A lot of people didn't want to have anything to do with it.
They're a little, most of the people around Billy, I'm afraid, unfortunately, are kind of naive, small-town type of people. And this has lended to the problem of people not being able to even get close to Billy or talk to him. They've kind of closed themselves off for the rest of the world because they just don't understand it. You and I live in a very fast-paced society. I live in Los Angeles, and you know, we're used to dealing with that kind of thing.
Right.
Billy lives on a farm in the mountains where they talk to their animals. He gives his trees names and things, and all the people who live there are very gentle, small-town type people. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. They're just not hip to the city at all.
Right.
And when somebody talking a little faster comes over and tell you what we're going to do, we'll get you a movie deal, and there's this, that, and the other, they are just very nervous.
Sure.
They don't know how to contend with those sort of things. So I find myself, I'm a rather kind of aggressive, open personality sort of person, and I found myself really slowing down and pulling back while I was over there to blend in. To make myself comfortable around Billy, I had to just like really calm down. And that seemed to work.
Mellow out.
I mellowed out a lot, yeah. Once I mellowed out and was kind of accepted around the house that I wouldn't be driving him crazy or anything, then I had a great time. And I went back a couple more times. And for me, it was just wonderful because all of us at some point in our life are asking questions about who we are, where we come from, and, you know, questions about life and so forth.
Speaking of, regarding the Pleiadians.
Yeah.
Obviously, from calling them Pleiadians, they come from Pleiades. But what are they? Who are they? what are they really doing?
Okay. Well, they're called Pleiadians to begin with because when Billy had his first contacts with them, he asked them where they were from. And they showed him a star chart, and it showed on there that around the sun Taygeta, which is one of our names, astronomers have given a name to a star. It's the top right star in the Pleiades section. When we look at the Pleiades, there's 7 stars. The top right one is called Taygeta. And they merely remarked to him that in that area, several light years back behind there is where they come from. So Billy began to call them the Pleiadians. Just, he needed a name for them. They don't call themselves that.
Right.
That's just a name he kind of attached to it. And
It's like anybody here. We need a label to slap on it.
That's right. You know, you're this, you're that, you're blue, or whatever you are. And they told him in a nutshell that we shared common ancestry. That many years back, actually 22 million years back, that some of their ancestors, who they call Lyrians, came here and had a colony on Earth. And they were descendants of Lyrians.
22 million years.
22 million years back, they say it's the first time their records show that the Lyrians had come to Earth. The Lyrians are human. They're very, very white skinned, kind of Scandinavian looking, bright green, blue-eyed, with shock blonde hair, white hair.
Are those the ones that have been referred to as the violet race?
Well, we seem to be hearing stories of a new white race mixed in with the Greys, but it's not the Lyrians. The Lyrians, unfortunately, are all but extinct. Due to wars and other problems, they just about wiped themselves out, and there's very few of them left.
So they have the same problems we do, in other words.
Yes, the Lyrians were very violent, and that's what led to the Pleiadians. The 230,000 years back, we're told, in Pleiadian folklore, a group of the Lyrians split off, went their own way, founded their own 3-planet colonization, and that's who the Pleiadians are. So they are Lyrians finding a new home. And they told us that today on Earth, in the white population of the planet Earth, that about 1/3 of the people here, 2/3 of that white population is of the Lyrian genetic.
That makes it kind of leery, doesn't it?
Yeah, just a little. So that's the connection. They kind of look at us like younger brothers and sisters. We have some common ancestry. We look just alike. The pictures I've seen of the Pleiadians, they look exactly like us. There's no difference at all. And so there's like a family connection there.
Now, physically, there's no difference.
Right.
Spiritually,
I would say
intellectually, what kinds of differences was Billy able to share with you?
There seem to be a lot of differences, I would say, in the spiritual area, like you mentioned, because their knowledge is, for one, they're older. They've explained to Billy and he to me that we do go through a series of material lives. What you and I think of as reincarnation is real. As a matter of fact, they track it on their computer systems. They can monitor life to life and see where one let off, what the new person needs to learn, and they exercise that in their schooling and get them back on track. They can monitor from lifetime to lifetime.
Kind of like CI in 2150, huh?
Something like that. Matter of fact, that's one of the reasons they chose Billy. They'd been tracking him from lifetime to lifetime and thought he would have been a great candidate to do that. They can bring them forward like that, so it gives them a chance to see things. Because of their technology, they know so much more about the universe we live in and how people are connected to it that they're no longer guessing and, they're beyond the belief systems now. They have actual factual information about how life proliferates. So spiritually, they're farther on down the road because they're far more knowledgeable and connected to the all, the life, whatever it is. Where we're just beginning to get curious and look into it, and we're out searching. A lot of people are.
Where do you see it going in regards to us?
I think we're on a really healthy track. Even though we have a lot of problems, obviously, on our planet, that we are, 182 nations in the United Nations, so they're trying to come together with our different social problems, economics, and ideology. It's going to be a real tough time for us to come together. But I see.
Do you think it's possible?
Oh, yes. Well, it's going to happen anyway. It's just a question.
I don't think we have a choice.
No, we don't. We really don't. We're coming together whether we like it or not. And I think out of that, combined with the fact that astrologically the Earth is moving into a really unusual time period that's sometimes labeled the New Age or Age of Aquarius like that, it is a fact that physically we're moving into an area that...
From a technology standpoint, how can you explain that to those people who have absolutely no idea of the harmonic convergence or anything like that?
two things. If you talk to any astronomer, they will show you that position-wise that the Earth is moving into a particular area where it is closer to the central core of the universe, just proximity-wise. Now, all that really means is that we are getting a greater influx of magnetic waves that feed the life cycle. Now, this is where it gets a little metaphysical, that during the evolution of any particular being, the body that you create, the ability of the mind, the intelligence and everything is based on the material matter that you create. And every person's material matter has a particular vibrational wave. It's oscillating. And as we get closer to a source of higher evolved energy, it affects your body. Just like what astrologers are always claiming, when the planets are in a certain alignment, you'll do this and so forth. Well, the really big clout is when the planet moves into this 2,000-year period where we have this close proximity to this massive amount of energy that created the universe. We're just closer to it. And it seems to have an effect. We'll find out what it is. We just got here, and none of us have lived for 25,000 years to see the last one.
Right.
But for anybody who's going to live for 2,000 years from now, they'll get to see the whole thing. But we're kind of at the doorway right now of this new period where planetary changes, evolutionary changes are beginning to happen.
So what I hear you saying is that we're really not going to wipe ourselves out. We do have...
We may lose a few. I think Billy told me that most of our problems and loss of population over the next 20 to 50 years, he was told it's not going to really be because of wars, and it's not going to be really because of our problems in getting along. Most of our problems are going to be natural disasters that naturally happen. The Earth is having a birthday, so to speak.
Right.
It's on a 25,860-year cycle where it goes around, and every time it gets in this particular position, it gets a surge of energy also from this proximity where it's at. And that seems to facilitate natural problems.
Things up a little
yes.
bit, huh? Okay.
So he says expect hurricanes like we've never defined them. I know we just had Andrew, and I was noticing even 20 years ago in his notes it talks about the hurricanes in the 90s getting bigger, and then suddenly we get hit by one we would not believe how bad it would be, and there would be tremendous loss of life and property across the entire East Coast. So they're talking about earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, and disease becoming much stronger than we've seen before, and possibly between now and 2012, we're told there could be a major loss of life really in those areas.
What can we do to prepare for it?
Well, a lot of preparing for anything is really empowering yourself with confidence, awareness of self, more knowledge just about who you are, and that's all done through introspective ways like meditation. If you need to, sometimes it's easier for other people to join groups of people they just plain get along with, good friends, people you can share with and love with, you know, and just have a good hug with every now and then that help you through tough times. But mostly what it's really all about is trying to live your life without fear, finding ways you can deal with problems, cataclysms, and difficulties in your life where you don't deal from a level of fear. And that's a little different for everybody. I can't tell everybody just to go out and start meditating, get into your inner self, and develop your spirit. Some people will change the channel right there. But on the other hand, if you know someone who is like that, you might want to sit down and have a chat with them. You might want to take a Saturday afternoon and go to a New Age meeting that you've never done before and just listen to some of the ideas. Because I'm not saying that everybody in the New Age movement has the answer to life.
But they definitely don't have a gun they're going to shoot you with.
They don't. They're nice people. They're real friendly, and they're definitely trying. The New Age people, if nothing else, are going out very boldly and they're aggressively trying to figure out life. They're not saying we've got the answers, but they're scratching. They're looking for it. And that's a healthy attitude. It's an open mind. And when you go from convention to convention like we're having right here, that's what you find. You find people that all have something different to say and maybe a different approach about it and a different opinion, but they're all very friendly, they're helpful, and they're looking.
And they're respectful of one another.
That's important. Yeah, we all have to. That's an important lesson in life, to give everybody space to be who they are. Yeah.
Randy? Excuse me, Randolph?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Bruce. Very nice.
Hi, I'm here now with Sal Rakelli, who's got some interesting perspectives of the UFO phenomena. And first of all, let's find out a little bit more about Sal. Sal, what got you involved with all this? I mean, you're a musician, a composer, you've got some nationally distributed tapes and things like that. How did that bring you into the UFO experience?
Well, it's an interesting story. Back in the 70s, I became involved with a group known as Solar Cross, which was involved in telepathic communication with extraterrestrials. At the time that I joined the group, I just simply had an open mind. I was sort of scientifically oriented. not particularly religious or spiritual, and it sounded a lot like science fiction to me. But being curious, I decided to investigate further. And one night, after several weeks of going to these classes where they would disseminate information that had been allegedly telepathically received, I had an experience of my own where I had energy come rushing through my body, and a tremendous amount of knowledge and information was transferred to me. And some of the books I had read and some of the psychic experiences I'd had up to that time, I kind of put the pieces together and realized that I was, being communicated to by some form of higher intelligence.
Okay. Now, what kind of messages or information did you receive in these telepathic communications?
Well, a lot of it was what I would call quantized, which meant that a lot of information was packed into a short amount of time, and it would come, in a sense, in a coded format. But basically, it was just like
a double-density floppy disk, huh?
Right.
Okay.
It was a lot like having a lot of information where I suddenly knew things that I hadn't known before. A lot of it was about, the state of the world, things that are going to be coming in the years to come. A lot about tremendous earth changes, changes in society and political economic structure. And then a lot around the spiritual aspects of life, the idea that we are much larger than simply this three-dimensional form with our mind and emotions and body, but that we have all these other layers and dimensions of ourselves which are very expansive and which go out in a very infinite way. And it kind of got me going. It was like an eye-opener, one of many experiences that sort of opened my eyes to the fact that this little picture of life that most of us are so caught up in our day-to-day routine was just that, a little tiny fragment of a larger picture.
Speaking of day-to-day routines, what's the practical applications of what you're learning, of what you...
Well, I think, as you've probably seen from a lot of the speakers at this expo, there are a lot of very practical applications in that. One of them is technology. I was the moderator for the technology panel yesterday, and we had a variety of viewpoints on how new technologies are going to shape the future of humanity. My telepathic communication with extraterrestrials has been largely designed around, what is the humanity of the future going to look like, and what kind of technologies are going to carry us into the 21st century. I think we all know that the internal combustion engine, nuclear, oil, coal, gas are damaging the Earth's environment irreparably, and so we obviously are going to have to find new sources of energy if we want to keep going as a species. So this is obviously one very practical application of some of the information that I've received. A lot of the information has to do with electromagnetic energy sources, ways of using superconductors and different forms of consciousness expansion to create new forms of transportation, new energy power sources. A lot of these things which have been known for some time in some circles but have never really been available to the general public.
Right, it generally takes, 15, 20 years for technologies that are developed in the military to reach a commercial application.
Correct.
So it stands to reason that these things that have been around for a while, from what we've heard so far, that the technologies would be reaching that level. And the consumer, let's say the average person, would begin to find out more about it, or at least those who have a propensity for wanting to know.
Another practical area is in the area of healing arts. A lot of us, I've been involved in the holistic health movement for the last 15 years. I mentioned my music creates a healing effect on the listener. And I've also been involved in many of the alternative therapies, such as rebirthing.
Do you use this with contactees?
Well, that's what I was trying to draw together here. A lot of the information that I've received from ET sources, as I call them, has been around healing and around health, and what are the root causes of illness. What is the larger picture? We know that viruses and things like this are part of it, but what causes some people to be susceptible to viruses and not others? And the ETs that I've been in communication with, which I would call the higher dimensional positive kind of ETs, have a tremendous knowledge of healing and what the life force energies, the subtle energy fields.
Well, if we view things, let's say from a Hindu perspective, where their philosophy is that everything is set up on vibration, that each of us has a particular, they call them vibratory rates, I believe.
Right.
That this, in effect, when you are able to alter that, whether it be through new technologies, or I've heard that also crystals are enabled to do that.
There will be new technologies designed to help heal the body. Already we have radionics instruments. Some people have used crystals and different kinds of grid systems in order to affect the electromagnetic field of the body. One of the things that we've discovered is that the auric field, or the electromagnetic energy that surrounds every human being, has a tremendous amount to do with that person's health.
Right.
In some cases more so than the organs of the body.
Now most people, from my experience, really don't know much about history or biology. Not to coin phrases,
sometimes they're better off.
Not to pull stuff out of old tunes, but I agree, sometimes they are better off. However, is the lack of that knowledge giving them a certain propensity for the sickness or the dis-ease in their own bodies?
Well, let me say something about that, because this is something that really needs to be addressed, and that is that there's what I call a fear-based mentality, and then there's what I call a more enlightened-based mentality. If we don't understand something, there's a tendency to fear it. That seems to be part of what most people call human nature.
Right.
And so it's important to become aware of some of the things which have been considered to be mysteries, so that we can learn to deal with our fears that are involved. A lot of the so-called mysterious phenomena has a scientific explanation. It's just that we haven't discovered it yet with the limited instrumentation and theories which have been developed by mainstream science. It's not that there's some kind of hocus-pocus necessarily going on. It's just
a lot of people refer to it as the occult, and they say that with some kind of a fearful presentation of it. But what really is occult? O-C-C-U-L-T.
Well, it depends on whether you want to get into the semantics of the meanings or not. My definition of there's occult and then there's cult. Occult is more or less, as the word suggests, it has to do with visionary, mystical kinds of experiences and knowledge which have been
maybe
passed down.
Understanding the mysteries of God or something like that.
Yeah,
I think that's what Webster says it is.
Yeah, you could use that as one definition. Certainly there have been mystics and occultists, throughout human history. What we're dealing with here, I think, embodies science, philosophy, spirituality, occult practices, psychology, psychiatry. Every known field known to man is embraced within what we're doing here, because what we're looking at is really a twofold phenomenon. We're looking at the existence of intelligent life originating in other planets and star systems that are just as physical and real as you and me, and we're also looking at what we would call the spiritual dimension, or beings into forms of intelligence that come from higher levels and dimensions, which are being perceived by those on this planet who have opened up their psychic and intuitive senses. So we really, and I'm going to, in my talk, I'm going to be covering these two aspects, because a lot of people confuse the two.
I'd once had a thought that, if we use, modern science, let's say, accepts that we use 10% of our brain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's the other 90% doing? Is it there?
That's a very good question.
How do we activate it? What do we do with it? How do we use it? What's it for?
Well, mostly science knows about the left and the right brain, and that one side is more intuitive and the other side tends to be more logical and rational. A large part of the unexplored part of the brain, according to my information, is what would be called a tensor region. By tensor region, what we're talking about is the part which is designed to communicate interdimensionally. In other words, to communicate with beings perhaps from higher dimensions, perhaps other existences, parallel time frames, past lives, information that comes from...
Or just to have a greater awareness of what's around you here in this physical world.
Well, it's more than just using the brain for that, though. This also involves the psychology of the self. This involves being able to be aware of and being willing to look at the aspects of ourselves which have not been integrated, which is a favorite buzzword around here.
Right.
This simply means that if there's parts of ourselves that we've denied or suppressed or had negative experiences with, that these parts will tend to color our perception so that it makes it harder for us to become aware of these other dimensions and other realities. It's not that they're very mysterious and hard to perceive, it's just that we have become so locked in and so focused on our own little drama, our own little trauma, as we like to call it around here. You know, our relationship problems, you know,
Sure.
issues with our family, and this sort of thing.
Anything that you can offer for the viewers that could give them a better scope of what's happening?
Well, I think it's really important right now, in the time that we're in, that people become aware of what's really happening on planet Earth right now. The planet is going through a period of tremendous change and upheaval. We're going to see the probable collapse of our present economic system within the next 10 years due to the completely out-of-control debt scenario, among other things. We're going to see a continued expansion spiritually, people becoming aware of true spirituality, not what most people find in the churches. And I'm not laying a judgment on organized religion, except to say that most people need to go within in order to find the truth, and most people have been looking for outer security out there, something out there to give them the answers, rather than finding out about who are we inside, you know, what makes the self tick, you know, what are the aspects
to go to our
of the self.
psychologist, our psychiatrist, our pastor, our priest, our
therapist.
whatever. Yeah, whatever.
And I'm not saying that
outside of ourselves.
there may be a time and a place for that,
Sure.
Particularly for a good therapist. Most of us came from dysfunctional families. It's very difficult for us to tell truth from fiction. In this movement especially, UFO, ET movement, it's very important to be able to listen to your own inner guidance, to have a sense of what's true, to be able to discern. My experiences, I've been very fortunate. I've met a lot of people in the field who are very genuine, sincere, who are going after the facts, who are not content to simply blindly believe everything that comes along. The truth is definitely much stranger than fiction. A lot of the reports, according to my experience, are true. We definitely are being visited by intelligent life from other planets and star systems, several different races, not just one or two. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, but this is all information that we need to...
And that's all relative, too.
...to discover on our own. Yes, that's a very good point. What's good to one person may not be good to another. We need to own our own perception of things. It's very important. And at the same time, we need to take our head out of the sand and realize that these things do exist. There's ample evidence, there's hard evidence to prove these things, and most of the speakers we have here this weekend are highly credible people who have been researching for many, many years, and who listen very carefully to all the reports before they draw conclusions, and who verify their sources and many other...
I'm here now with Sandra Bowen, and Sandra, you're a psychic consultant.
Yes, I am.
Now, you bring a different perspective into this UFO conference, and that's regarding Atlantis, Lemuria, and the crystal skulls. What's that got to do with UFOs?
My experience with crystal skulls was a UFO experience, where in 1980, I did not even know what crystal skulls were, but I was taken up astrally into a ship, and there were a number of things that transpired, but right before I came back to my body, I was taken down into the earth and placed in an amber cave and shown a crystal skull and a crystal whistle with blue and yellow feathers on one end and a blue sapphire on the other end. I was told that this whistle activates the skull, and that this lifetime I would have that whistle. Now, up to this point in time, I haven't received it, but I know that I will, because since then everything that has transpired, I'm told that it will.
Okay. Now, you mentioned going out of your body astrally and having visions of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that's normal to people?
Yes, it's normal. They may not remember that they can do it, but every night when we go to bed, we leave our body and we go somewhere.
And so this would explain the types of bizarre dreams that some people have about going to different places, different worlds, different types of who knows what.
Right.
Okay. Now, with the Atlantean and Lemurian and the crystal skull connection, what significance does that have to right now?
The crystal skulls are computers. They have the history of the earth within them. They activate people.
By activating, what do you mean?
By activating, if we need a certain, well, I'm very clairvoyant, so I can see that people, when they need to open up to whatever information is within them, that there's blocks in the body. So certain color rays emanate from the skulls, and they hit a person. Like, for example, you have a block right here, and what a purple ray would come right here, and it would open up that area, so that when you receive information, when you open up to information, then it will come down and go through your body, and you'll be able to integrate it. Because the importance of remembering everything, our past lives, Atlantis, Lemuria, whatever involvement that we had at that time, we need to remember that to help us this lifetime.
Okay. By integration, what do you mean?
Integration is just opening up and then grounding the physical body. Because when your astral body, or your emotional body, or your spiritual body goes through something, it always comes down into the physical body.
So you're saying we have many other bodies other than our physical body?
Oh yes, definitely, we do.
Okay.
And they sometimes they leave and are worked on or whatever, and then they return. So I always, when I work with people, I tell them, take time out from this process and go somewhere in nature and relax and drink a lot of water, and then you won't feel so spacey, you won't feel so burnt out, because this is an actual happening.
So what you mean by integration is that it's a process that gets us through the confusion that we often feel in our jobs, in our personal lives, of not being able to deal with things.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
How can people that don't know about other bodies or the astral worlds or whatever, how can they intellectualize or feeling-wise be able to initiate this process, being ignorant to the things that you've said already?
This process happens to everyone because we're growing beings. There are numerous books. The books are not only at metaphysical bookstores, but at regular bookstores. And if they want to pursue it, and then of course there are places where people meet in groups to discuss what's happening to them.
I've also heard that the scriptures have a very large significance in this. How could you relate to that?
The Bible? The Bible?
Right.
Well, my understanding of the Bible is that my favorite part is just knowing that if you are confused, that if you pray, that your prayers will be answered. And
in other words, we all have a direct connect.
And actually, absolutely. And my UFO experience was an answer to my prayer, because I was feeling very despondent and confused and saying, I know that I'm here to do something. I don't know what it is. And that's what happened to me. And it changed my life, completely changed my life.
And obviously for the better.
For the better.
Now, with the prayers, more specifically with the involvement of the Bible, a lot of Christians, a lot of Orthodox religions and things think that this is all a bunch of foo-foo, or woo-woo, or whatever you want to call it. What do you have to say to that?
I feel that everything that happens to us is a personal experience. It's what we chose, and
personal responsibility have anything to do with it?
Yes, but anything that brings people together and there's a positive attitude and there's love and faith, to me, that's
faith, hope, and charity.
That's what it's all about. So I feel that every religion has truth.
Again, back to the UFO conference here. What types of information are you disseminating to the people that attend this type of function?
Well, I personally talk about my experiences, because I feel that by sharing what's happened to me, I have people come up to me and say, I went through that exact same thing. And then it's easier for me to, sometimes I work with them, sometimes I just say, well, thank you, and talk to them for a little bit. But if they come and I regress them or I do a reading for them, having gone through experiences myself, it's very helpful.
And if you don't go through those experiences, you really don't have a framework from which to understand.
It's more difficult. Not that you can't do it. It's just more difficult.
So in other words, books don't always have the answers, but they can give you at least an idea.
They can kind of get you started, and then usually you're guided to people you need to meet, or work with, or whatever, support groups.
All different aspects of the oneness that creation is, I'm assuming.
That's right.
Okay. Sandra, thank you very much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you.
And now we're here with Susan Gordon, who brings yet another perspective into the UFO phenomenon. And with that, Susan, how did you first get involved? I mean, you're in a slightly different area because you're dealing with things in a more psychological basis. What got you involved?
Well, I guess I would go back to 1988 when a friend of mine encouraged me to take a few meditation classes, and that seemed to start the ball rolling. I didn't take classes in meditation in order to become a UFO contactee or anything like that. Up to this point, I knew nothing about UFO contacts or that there was such a thing as investigators or anything. I was in the advertising business, and prior to that I was in the horse business, so I couldn't have been further removed from...
And substance-wise, your life had been clean, so there was no...
Yes, I guess I really feel like an alien because I have not used anything, any mind-altering substances or anything that would have stimulated those processes otherwise, although I do understand that by meditation you can get in touch with the other side, and that certainly is what happened, and it began a long series of events that eventually led me into the UFO field full-time.
Now, we first met at a UFO conference several years ago.
That's right, that was 2 years ago, this September. I remember.
Wonderful. Now, the perspective that you're taking now, though, from how did you get involved? First of all, would you describe more the skew that you've taken?
All right. I've started looking at things genetically and chemically, processes that take place in the brain that allow these sort of things that I'm referring to are anything from what the medical profession terms as auditory hallucinations to visual hallucinations. whether they're hallucinations or not, I think they're all very real, for one thing.
Perception is reality.
Perception is reality, that's right, and thought is matter. So it's just a label that's attached to these things, and a lot of people seem to have the same hallucinations, which is rather interesting. But we have to look at how it affects the real world and how people outside of ufology, deal with things like this. And I guess I really started using myself as a guinea pig and finding out why this happened, and I discovered that things occurred when I was a teenager that were probably quite pertinent to what started happening when I was 28 and I had taken those meditation classes, and everything that led to a series of contacts and writings and all kinds of things, that typically happen when someone becomes a UFO contactee, quote unquote. And I started looking at a real practical sense, encouraged by the fact that I live with a scientist who demands hardcore evidence of things, which was actually very good, because I had done the New Age.
Grounded.
It did. I had done the New Age metaphysical thing. I started working with crystals and started to understand and found a lot of success in working with crystals, especially with animals, which, I'd been a horse trainer for a number of years and was able to see the results and the effects of actually...
At an equestrian level, right?
At a professional level. I was, up and with jumpers and the Olympic disciplines. So I was into that full time. And I guess I just went from there into various sciences, and I would have to say that I was led into things because although I'd wanted to be a scientist when I was a kid, zoology was my thing, and the microscope was my favorite toy, and I just never had really done that once I got out of high school. So I became interested again in things like electronics and engineering and started studying that, and that led to the study of superconducting materials. And then I looked around and realized that a very big problem was with substance abuse and chemical addictions, and started looking at that, and then discovered molecular psychology and started seeing the connections with the whole extraterrestrial and UFO phenomenon. Then I started looking at genetics because, I'd heard speakers talk about alleged genetic manipulations by aliens and the conspiracies and the cover-ups, and one thing has led to another, and I found some.
Is it more a process of actual natural selection?
What's that? The process by which I've looked into all of these various sciences, or the way?
The way that people are becoming open to these types of experiences, the awareness that they're there.
I think what we are actually seeing, from what I have gathered through medical journals, and I do have access to updated medical journals. I volunteer in the I volunteer in the staff library at the Mayo Clinic, which is a very I feel very fortunate to be able to do such a thing. But I do a lot of reading.
Get to be privy to that kind of information.
No, and I really did want to look into really specific medical information and select areas of research and study that I was really getting frustrated with in regular libraries, and starting to look into databases and things like that, and just find out where I can access more specific information. But I think, from what I've gathered, is that we are actually undergoing some kind of evolution in our central nervous system. And it's becoming more and more on a group level, where we are seeing people get in touch with what has normally been outside of our visible spectrum. Things like orgone energy, or UFOs as unicellular bioplasmic entities, which is an interesting concept as well.
It's an interesting term. Could you explain that?
That is, what it comes down to is we are literally living in the microcosm of a gigantic plasma field, where this planet is really not that much different from the cells that course through the veins in our very own bodies. And when you look at
that smacks of oneness.
You bet it does. That's it. And what it comes down to is an explanation of life. If we're to understand the whole UFO and extraterrestrial phenomena, we have to understand life, which unfortunately over the years has become separated into the arts or certain sciences, and nobody's really gotten together and unified everything.
Yeah, they've all gotten into specific specializations.
That's right.
It's like doctors going to
and they all
school.
battle
okay,
with
what are you
each
going to
other.
specialize in?
That's right.
And they go this way and that way.
And they're stuck there for years, and they end up with a very narrow view unless they are some kind of visionary, which all through history the greatest leaders and inventors have been a combination of many things and generally studied many different sciences and involved themselves in as many different things as they possibly could in order to understand their world and their environment. And we really do have to have a sophisticated knowledge of all different aspects in order to understand the UFO phenomena. And understanding that we are part of a huge plasma field is just part of it, and it all makes sense after a while.
Takes a while.
Yes.
The specific study that you've been doing has been more into the specifics of substance abuse, chemical stimulation,
That's
from
right.
the foods that we eat and the products that we put into our bodies. What have you found in that?
A lot. There are chemicals that are becoming very popular, like the artificial sweeteners and things that are known not only very toxic to the human body, but they actually cause alterations at the level of the gene expression so that thoughts become disordered. The whole process that goes from the gene to the enzyme to the molecule to the thought becomes defective. And we're seeing a really...
So the electrochemical neurocircuitry breaks down.
That's right. That's right. It just malfunctions. It has a lot to do with understanding basic brain chemistry and how neural circuitry works. But essentially, if the gene has been tampered with and it's altered, then that entire chain, right, to the thought and the reaction is defective. And what seems to be happening is that large groups of people, for example, I'll pick on manic depression or bipolar affective disorder, including its milder forms, it said that it's going to affect up to 30% of the population, where people will suddenly become very, well, if the first episode is manic, they can become extremely hostile and violent and just do...
Well, it seems like you walk down the street in any city, in any location, even in the small towns, people are manic depressive.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's alarming. And if you talk to a pharmacist or a doctor that's involved with it, or you go into the professional community where there are psychologists working with younger people especially, because it often starts in the teenage years. And it's very, very frightening. And it seems that a lot of these people all of a sudden start doing things that in the metaphysical community are considered wonderful, like they start channeling music, or they start talking to angels, or they start seeing UFOs. And it seems to correlate
is that good
with
for them?
In this case, it isn't. It seems to throw them completely off balance, and then especially if it's been chemically triggered by these substances, like poisonous substances in the food, like NutraSweet, which is so toxic and has been known to, it is a known trigger for this illness, as is cocaine, for example. Anything that seems to cause violent mood or personality swings, it's my personal feeling that this puts people in danger of these, and I believe it's driven, I mean, if you want to go back and you can look at the whole idea of these gray aliens being fallen angels, the Luciferic beings who would prefer that mankind not evolve, remain as spiritual automatons instead of gaining spiritual freedom, and it's all of these substances that take away the free will of the person that has used them. And it seems that even if there's a pre-existing genetic condition, for example, if someone's the child of an alcoholic, you are known to have a condition that exists in the brain that actually registers on an EEG as a missing brainwave pattern called P3. And I think sometimes in the case of manic depression, even that seems to be the only common link. And substance abuse is very common amongst those with the manic depression too. And like I mentioned, cocaine is a known trigger.
You also mentioned NutraSweet,
which happens to be made by the same company that manufactures Prozac, which is a drug that is used in cases of depression and manic depression. It's very controversial.
So you're saying that the same company that produces the chemical that causes the disease also produces the chemical that treats the disease.
Yes.
That sounds like a hell of a money-making proposition.
Doesn't it? I mean, it kind of takes it out of the context of, okay, so the government has UFOs, and there's all this stuff going on about the conspiracies and the cover-ups, and I think people are missing what is really happening.
Well, one of the oldest
Chinese
philosophies is to divide the enemy and let them fight amongst themselves.
Sure. Which is exactly what's happening. And as far as, you know, chemical, electrochemical, I mean, I use the term psychogenetic engineering a lot. Because when the gene is pinpointed, a gene that causes, I mean, our laboratories, they say in the profession that, this is all being researched now, it's all being discovered. Well, you can bet in some lab, which all of the major universities in the research are monitored by the CIA in this country, which, of course, don't have to release anything to the general public.
Which is scary when you know that George Bush used to be the head of the CIA.
Of course. And all of this technology is not alien technology. Who knows, maybe some extraterrestrial started it in some lab a long time ago, but it is certainly known to the labs and to the researchers and to the scientists on this planet, the ones that are working with it, the ones that are releasing it. And you can bet the stuff that gets released to the public has been in the works and known long before it ever gets into the public sector. And
marginalized information, so to speak.
Yeah, sure it is. So psychogenetic engineering is not beyond the capabilities of what goes on this planet right now. I mean, we have machines that if a photon in your brain moves, these machines will register it. I'm talking about a SQUED or, an MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, which is something that actually alters, it works off what's called the resting rate of hydrogen atoms in the body. And we can actually see inside a person's head while it's still alive.
There's been articles in the major papers here, I'm guessing about 6 months ago, regarding MRI.
Sure. It's there's still a lot that's unknown about it. Even with functional brain scanning or brain mapping, people are saying now, is it a useful tool or a dangerous toy? Because these instruments are now in the hands of a lot of uncertified people. And who knows what's going to come out of that.
Same thing with television, I suppose, eh?
The television's in the hands of a lot of uncertified people.
Who?
What are they doing over those airwaves? But there's a lot going on that, people are so quick to say, oh, the extraterrestrials brought this in or the aliens brought this in, and they are missing the fact that there are a lot of people...
Aren't we responsible?
We are responsible, bottom line. There's a lot of people in a lot of trouble, and it is getting worse every day, and anyone that's working in the industry, in the medical profession, or in counseling, or especially working with young people, they are really feeling that there is some kind of crisis. When I hear people saying, oh, these earth changes are coming up, or so-and-so channeled this in 1992 and 1995 are going to be this and that, and I just sit there and go, just look at where the problem is. 43% of Americans, for example, are affected by alcoholism, one way or the other. It is absolutely devastating. It is usually the underlying problem between half the people in prison, 25% of all hospital cases. That's from a book called, I believe it's called Alcohol in America, which is an excellent book. And it might be even higher than that. And it's absolutely devastating. Really devastating. If there is a crisis, in the human mind right now, which I believe is where things like, this photon belt and all of this stuff that came up, and although people laughed at it and said it was a joke, to me it indicates that something is definitely going on. When people start spreading this around and other people start believing it, there is definitely a crisis happening.
Well, especially when you achieve, like we were talking earlier, a mass critical consciousness.
Yeah.
That enables something to happen, whether we consciously accept the responsibility for that or not.
And
that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen.
That's right.
It's like just because you don't believe something doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah. And I actually use the word believe very little now, because you can know one way or the other. You can do enough research, even if it's finding out what goes on between, life and rebirth, if you want. You can find scientific, you can look into physics, you can look into chemistry, you can look at anthroposophy, and you can find out exactly what happens with very logical explanations, not just saying, oh, the energy is this or the vibration is this. There is always some way to get some kind of concrete fact. And in spiritual science, which I have to consider ufology being, in one aspect, spiritual science, even more so than mechanistic science, I think you have to endeavor to find concrete facts. Generalizations and abstractions aren't good enough. If somebody's talking energy, then they darn well better have a physical explanation of what energy means, what vibration or vibratory rate means. If they're talking about light, they're talking about wavelengths and nanometers. Are they talking particles or wave fields? And you kind of have to flip-flop back and forth, because, again, there isn't really a tightly knit community that really does combine all of these things totally, although there are some very good groups out there.
How can someone who is questioning these things, how can they rely on what's going on inside of them?
That's another interesting point, because I think more than ever it's really important to, like I mentioned earlier this morning, to maintain our sanity. And in order to do that, you have to know what is going on in the world around you as far as what is creating just the opposite. And in order to stay focused and really know what's happening with your body, for example, if, people that are fatigued or having environmental allergies, just generally feeling unwell, or that they're in the wrong place, or that something's not happening.
Like the chronic fatigue syndrome.
Yes.
That the majority, it's even stated medically that it's been proven that the majority of people in the United States suffer from chronic fatigue syndrome.
Oh, and I believe it. And the only way we're going to get around that is to learn how our body works, like how it really works, and understand how the energy system works. And I think our future is in non-invasive medicine, for one thing. And really, from what I've found and from what I've put into practice recently, is that light, for one thing, is a very practical thing to actually work with. Full spectrum lighting, which helps keep the body balanced. It's actually been approved by the National Institute of Mental Health now in the treatment of, I believe it's 6 or 7 different mental disorders that have been divided up into, and the full spectrum light boxes have been approved for treatment to be covered by insurance and everything. In the
so
case
we are
of
making
depression,
strides then.
We actually are. And when I see things like that happen, I go, all right, there is hope, there are good things. Because I don't mean to sound like all doom and gloom, everything is not terrible, but we have to be aware that this is happening to large groups of people on a large scale, and we must somehow be aware of which substances take away our free will, which includes anything that is mood and mind altering at this point, puts you in touch with the group consciousness that surrounds that substance. And the most part, it's pretty bad at this point. It's pretty bad.
Susan? Thank you. So
you're welcome.
So we
You're
said,
welcome.
in essence, that we need to know what is.
We do, and what we can do.
I am your door.